Welcome to the NS Savannah, the world's first nuclear-powered merchant ship and a National Historic Landmark of the United States. My name is Erhard Kohler. I'm the Program Manager for the United States Maritime Administration, and it's my pleasure to welcome you aboard for your tour today. As the sign behind me says, the Savannah is licensed and inspected by the United States Nuclear Regulatory Commission. The ship was constructed in the 1950s, operated throughout the 1960s, and was permanently shut down in 1970 and 71. Its nuclear reactor is still on board, and that is why we still have the license from the NRC, and it will remain licensed until such future date as the reactor is removed from the ship and the license is terminated. For visitors to the Savannah, we're pleased to have you come on board, but in accordance with our license, we have to give you a brief safety instruction prior to boarding the ship. We're going to talk a little bit about industrial safety, shipboard safety, and a little bit about radiological safety. Radiation's in the environment all around us. We're exposed to it every day. Some of it is radiation that's made by man, and some of it is radiation that comes naturally occurring from within the Earth and from space. The sun is up there trying to peek out of the clouds, and every day that it's a sunny day, we're being exposed to radiation. Go down and enjoy a beach vacation, and you're going to use sunscreen to protect yourself from the radiation from the sun to prevent sunburn. And just like that, the Savannah and its nuclear power plant is built with shielding to protect us from the effects of man-made radiation. Now, as I mentioned, the Savannah has been shut down permanently since 1971. The reactor doesn't generate any new radiation, but all that shielding that was built to protect the passengers on the ship, the crew on the ship, the visitors to the ship like yourselves, the food that they ate, the cargo that the ship carried, all of that is still intact, and it still serves the function of protecting us from residual radioactivity that's inside the plant. The ship itself is an excellent protection from the radiation in the environment. Whether it's coming from the sun when we're inside, the steel protects us. Whether it's coming up from the earth, the water that the ship floats in protects us. All of that, even here on the pier, when you arrive, you'll see that there are concrete jersey walls, all of which contain small quantities of naturally occurring radioactive materials. The chances are pretty good. You'll get more radiation exposure out here on the pier than you will once you step on board the ship. So from that standpoint, from a radiological standpoint, the Savannah is as safe as anywhere else that you can be here in the Port of Baltimore, here in the state of Maryland. As far as industrial safety is concerned, it is a shipboard environment. Now, the Savannah was built as a passenger vessel. It is equipped with very wide stairs and with wide passageways, and it's accommodating to visitors. Many, many, many thousands of people visited the ship each time it called in port when it was in operation, and it did serve as a museum for some 13 years in Charleston, South Carolina. But even with all of these arrangements, you have to be a little careful as you're walking around. Be aware of where you're walking. Look ahead of you. Don't look down, don't look up, look in front of you. Be aware of high thresholds, low overheads, the steps when you're walking up and down. You don't want to trip and fall. So pay attention to your surroundings so that you're safe as you're walking through the ship. Savannah was built back in the 60s, in the late 50s and the 60s, and we used a lot of good stuff back in those days. Things like lead paint, things like asbestos, things like PCBs and some of the wiring and the old, not currently functional ventilation systems. So understand that the Maritime Administration and its contract staff work on board the ship every day. We are occupants of the ship, and we would not work somewhere where we would be exposed to hazardous materials in the routine course of events. So you as visitors walking through the ship will not be exposed to the hazards of these materials, but they are present. So we ask you, for example, please don't eat the paint chips. Not a good thing to do. It's kind of funny, but don't throw any switches. The ship is over 50 years old, and sometimes the wiring may not exactly do what we hope that it would do, so we ask you, please don't touch. As for the other materials, they're all intrinsically safe as you walk through the ship. We do survey the tour routes periodically for radiological hazards and for industrial hazards, so you should have no problems walking through the ship today. As you're walking through the ship today, you will be escorted. There will be somebody wearing a Savannah badge or a distinctive Savannah shirt like my own, and they will be responsible for you while you're on board the ship. Stay with your escort. Follow the instructions of your escort while you're walking through. Now, if you're part of a large school group, your teacher or chaperone may be one of your escorts. We will instruct them before we come on board as to what to do. Your teachers know pretty well how to keep track of you as you're wandering on a field trip. So respect them, respect the escorts, stay together, do not wander. If you wander, you're going to wind up being asked to leave the ship. If there is an emergency on board, the alarms will sound, and we're going to ask you most likely to leave the ship and come back down here to the pier, to the base of the stairs where you came on board. Follow the instructions of your docents and your escorts. Don't be panicked. No major problem is going to occur if you just stay calm. Follow the instructions of your escorts and walk down to the pier where we can take account of you. We want to make sure that we know where everyone is in the event of an emergency so that we don't have to go searching for you. And I believe that covers almost all of the things you need to know. If there's anything else, your escort may cover it. You'll see some signs on doors as you walk through the ship. Please respect them. You are not going to go into any of the controlled spaces today. That's not part of your visit. But you will get to walk close to and next to the nuclear reactor, the reactor compartment, the engine room. You'll see where the reactor-generated steam was used to propel the ship. And you'll learn a lot about its history and the interesting things that it's done over the many years since it was first proposed and built by President Dwight Eisenhower as part of the Atoms for Peace program. We look forward to your visit. We hope that you'll be able to come back again another time in the future. That guy does too, but this is the captain. This is Pete Block. He was the captain of the ship when it was taken out. What else did you notice about Pete Block?